set? Good evening, guys. Thank you so much for coming tonight. We do appreciate it. If you all could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We are joined by 6 of our trustees, our superintendent of schools, Dr. Timothy Harney, our assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction, Mr. Robert Haas, our assistant superintendent for finance and operations, Mrs. Carrie Lachlan, our district legal counsel, Mr. Alan Vega, our district clerk, Mr. Zambonetti, and our student delegate, who is also famous now on News 12, Ms. Kelly Bruckner. Big round of applause for Kelly. As always, there are a few opportunities for the community to participate during the Board of Ed meeting. The first is just before the board takes up its agenda. The second follows a disposition of all agenda items. As always, if you'd like to speak, we ask that you come to the podium. You must be a community member or a person who works in this district. We ask that you keep those comments to approximately 3 minutes. As always, you can see in the back, we live stream and post everything to board docs. And if you'd like to follow the district, you can follow us at BBP School District. But at this time, before we get into our Dr. Harney's report, we'll open it up for the community members for any new or old business they want to speak to the board about. Not hearing any, we'll turn it over to Dr. Harney for your report. Dr. Harney, how are you, sir?
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Mel. First of all, welcome to everyone here tonight. In just a moment, we're going to get to we're going to be able to recognize a number of our musicians. So I'd like to congratulate you on behalf of the Bayport Blue Point School District, myself and the Board of Ed. We welcome you here. We're looking forward to that. So we're going to do that momentarily. And again, to Kaylee, congratulations to you as well. Very, very proud of you. I hope you guys were able to see that on News 12. They did a really nice job with it. Just a couple of announcements, and I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Bruckner because she'll give most of the updates. But just the elementary report cards were posted to the portal, so if you did not see them yet, they are there. And if you have any questions, please reach out to your buildings. And just a reminder that our spring reset starts on Thursday through the following week. And then you did receive something from myself last night regarding the calendar around Memorial Day. We had originally 2 emergency days built in, that Friday and Tuesday, which now, since we had 3 snow days at that time, we will be back in school those days. So obviously we will be off for Monday, Memorial Day. So just a reminder of that, so you have that. I'd also like to thank Mr. Haas and our principals for STEAM night the other night. They did a tremendous job. I'd also like to recognize Seed, who helped out tremendously with it. It really was a nice night for all of our students that were there. And we are in the concert season, as people know. We had 2 concerts this past week, and then we have a number of ones coming up in the near future, so please check your calendars for that. 2 last just quick announcements. Just a reminder, the library budget vote is on the 14th, so please go there and vote. And then also, if you are a senior citizen or you have anyone within your family that is, we have our senior citizen dinner. That will be on May 7th, so we're looking forward to see all of them once again. Other than that, we have 2 presentations tonight. We have Ms. Velasco doing an academic presentation for us, and then myself and Ms. Lachlan will do a budget presentation as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Bruckner.
Thank you, Dr. Harney. The 3 elementary schools, along with the middle school, hope everyone has a wonderful spring break, creating memories with family and friends. Everyone is looking forward to a great end of the year. The high school had a productive and engaging month, highlighted by outstanding student performances in our music program and strong participation in recent school events, including the junior banquet and ongoing extracurricular activities. We hosted an exciting STEAM night and continued college and career readiness opportunities for our students throughout the month. While spring sports have started, please come down and support our students. We are also preparing for the AP exam testing period in May and encouraging students to stay focused and finish the year strong. Thank you and have a great break.
Thank you, Ms. Bruckner. But at this time, we want to obviously celebrate and honor our students here, so we're going to turn it over to Mr. Haas. Big round of applause.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. I would like to call up, we have our building principals here who are going to assist in giving out these certificates, so I would like to call them up. So before I get started, I do want to take a moment. I know Dr. Harney already did, but I would like to also congratulate all of our students being recognized this evening in the area of music. This really, an evening like tonight, really shows the tremendous talent that we have within our district across all grade levels, from the elementary all the way to seniors who are graduating, that I know are, as we learned the other night at the CV's event, that are continuing their passion at the college level and continuing to study music. So I congratulate them all. I also want to thank Mr. Weber and the entire music department for all of the time and effort that they put in with the students to help them get to some of the spots they are, and also congratulate the parents, because I know that practicing at home goes on a lot, and sometimes it's a little bit of a battle at home to get them to do that practicing, but when they get there, it does make a tremendous difference. So congratulations to everyone, and I'd like to now start calling up our students. So we have several different categories, and I'll call you up by category. Some of you, you're going to see with some students, they may be winning in multiple. I'd ask that you stay up after you get your awards, because then we're going to go up to the stage for a group photo. So the first we have Francesco Silvestrini, NYSMA All-State. The next group of awards are the New York State Council of Administrators of Music Education. We have Willems Adams Kane, Michaela DeRosmo, Kaylee Doris, Francesco Silvestrini, Alexander Valder, Hannah Wright, Jackson's Wake. For the next award, we have, this student is recognized for the Suffolk County Music Educators Association and Jazz Festival, and we have Kaylee Doris. The next group of students will recognize the Long Island String Festival Association, Joseph Abadi, Cameron Galileo Stafiori, Michaela Salvo, Clara Swinken, Eric Swinken, our next award goes to a student being recognized with the Suffolk County Music Educators Association All-County Percussion Ensemble, and that is Cecilia Abracia. The next group of awards are from the Suffolk County Music Educators Association, Division I, Edie Albee, Aria Branch, Isabella Del Vicchiario, Thomas Dombrowski, Mason Garafola, Graham Hirsch, Emma Hogan, Catherine Hogan, Sophie Hughes, Genevieve Jordan, Harper Kirshner, Andrew Coble, Kaylee Maxim, Nola Patillo, Vera Sepulveda, Clara Swinken. Alexander Turk. And Kevin Zane. And the next group of awards is Suffolk County Music Educators Association Division 2. We have Janie Abracia. Fiona Brinkman. Jameson Hogan. Skylar Johnson. Michael Majorano. Ella Manley. And our final award is for the Suffolk County Music Educators Association Division 3. Joseph Abadi. Juliana Cirillo. Landon Hedstrom. Connor Manley. And Eric Swinken. So I would invite, again, congratulations. I'd invite everyone to come on up to the stage, invite our Board of Education to come on up to the stage as well to join them in a picture. Once again, congratulations to all our students. Job well done.
Again, guys, congratulations. Thank you so much. Have a great night. We appreciate you coming out. All right, at this time, we'll pass it over to Mr. Haas so we can introduce Ms. Velasco for her presentation.
Thank you again, Mr. Miller. It is now my pleasure to introduce Blue Point Elementary School Principal, Ms. Tara Velasco, who, continuing on, yes, you can clap. Continuing on with the presentations that we've had from the other buildings, Ms. Velasco this evening, and I don't want to take too much from her, is going to be presenting on some of the work that they're doing at Blue Point Elementary and really tie it to a new initiative within the district that we've been working on for the past 2 years in our MTSS plan. So, Ms. Velasco.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to talk about something that is really near and dear to my heart, but also something that is becoming overly super important to Blue Point Elementary School. So over the past couple of years, we're seeing a big difference in student behaviors. Their increased stress, difficulty regulating their emotions, challenges re-engaging with learning. And we realized that we differentiate instruction academically, but we also have to start thinking about differentiation for social and emotional purposes as well, so that we can meet the needs of all of our students. So I started to research the topic more deeply. I wrote an article for the National Principal Magazine, and I got a lot of responses from around the nation that people were really responding to it, resonating with what I had to write, and I felt like I had to just dive a little bit deeper into the information and bring more of it back to Blue Point Elementary School. At our most recent faculty meeting, we met and talked about different behaviors that we're seeing at our school, seeing in the classrooms, and then discussing more effective ways we can support students, but still maintaining high expectations for learning. And as you can see, there are teachers here in the audience here to support that work, and that truly shows the dedication that we have to supporting our students. So just quickly, thank you, Ms. Yannick, Ms. Kosmiskas, Ms. Monahan, Ms. Rang, Ms. Leitshows, Ms. Olmstead, and Ms. Silvering for being here. And I'd like to just share some of these observations that we're seeing, but also the practices that we're implementing at BPE as well. So why does this matter? This reflects a broader change in the student experience that we're seeing in our schools today. Many children are carrying a higher baseline level of stress. In 4th and 5th grade, we're talking about that invisible backpack. Students are coming to school with things that we don't know about them, and they're carrying them on their back. And when we just start adding more and more to it, they are increasing their stress, decreasing their regulation. There's constant inputs, faster paced routines, technology, social media, and of course that post-pandemic development gaps that have affected all of our students. So we want students to enter the building and enter our classrooms in a positive way, but also ready to learn. So we're pivoting, we're taking our observations and putting them into action. Why does this matter? Anxiety does not separate from the academics. As adults, we know the more stressed we are, the more anxiety, the more anxious we are, the harder it is to do our work, the harder it is to learn. And when students are dysregulated, their education, their attention, working memory, persistence, and problem solving are all affected. So we want to take this opportunity to put things in place in our classrooms, in our building that helps with this. In other words, emotional readiness and academic readiness are closely connected, and we want to make sure that we are addressing all of it at Blue Point. But rather than lowering our expectations, we focus on adapting the routines, structures, and supports so students can access learning successfully. So we don't want to lower those expectations, we want to keep them, but also help them in ways that support them individually. So like I said, at our last faculty meeting, we did meet and we had a discussion about what we're seeing, what we're noticing day to day in our classrooms. We are seeing that students are worrying more, they're escalating faster, they're taking longer to reset after disappointment, conflict, or frustration. We are also seeing uneven development in self-regulation and a lot of supports needed for face-to-face, that social problem solving. One important message is that we treat behavior as information, not identity. So we're not saying you're behaving like this because you are a bad student. We're saying, what are you trying to communicate to us? What information can we learn from your behaviors, and how can we support them? This is not an excuse for any type of behavior. It just helps us respond in ways that are more effective and more likely to lead to improved student outcomes. So more stress, less practice with regulation can mean more dysregulation in the classroom, and that is what we're seeing. So research shows that stress directly affects learning. Like I said, when students feel overwhelmed, attention, working memory, and persistence decrease. However, the opposite is also true. That is why we're starting to use predictable routines, clear transitions, brief supports to help throughout the day. They're not distractions from learning. They're often what make learning possible for some of our students. When students can reset efficiently, we can recover that instructional time and increase their capacity to engage productively. So this goes along with our MTSS alignment. We have been working with Mr. Haas and a committee with Branching Minds to create an MTSS plan. So many of us, when we think of MTSS or we think of RTI and tiered interventions, we think of academics. It's a prevention-based data-informed system of support. So we are starting to look at that in an SEL component as well. So at tier 1, which is the bottom of that pyramid, all students receive universal supports that help them succeed in the building. We're working on building self-regulation. We're working on positive peer interaction. And then at tier 2 and tier 3, it's more of that targeted support. So that could include behavior plans or working with Mrs. Yannick or working with Mrs. Graziano. But again, our expectations remain consistent along with the data and monitoring that we're collecting, and then the team problem solving. What changes throughout the tiers is the frequency and the intensity of the supports that we give the student. So for the most part, this presentation and what I'm going to be talking about next is really that tier 1 whole school support system that we have put in place. So building practices, we have 2 goals. One is to provide structured opportunities to strengthen peer connection and self-regulation. So this is, again, tier 1 whole school level. These are opportunities and things that we put in place for the entire building and all of our students. So we do have a buddy program. So grades K and 3 are buddied together, grades 1 and 4 are buddied together, and grades 2 and 5 are buddied together. And throughout the year, they have activities and events planned where they can work together. So it's that mentorship, that cross-grade mentorship, promoting leadership, but more importantly, what B stands for, belonging. We have a Zen Den in our building, which we're really proud of. It's a regulation mindful space designed for guided self-regulation and emotional reset. These are places students go before they are heightened. So we actually have students asking to go there. They say we need a minute. Can I go to the Zen Den? And then we have an adult bring them to that Zen Den so that they can self-regulate and reset emotionally. In addition, students benefit from our push-in social worker lessons with our amazing social worker, Mrs. Yannick. It's small group she has, and also classroom-based SEL lessons and skill development. So that could be anything from gratefulness, empathy, leadership, and she pushes in monthly to the classrooms and talks about these skills. And then we are increasing our high school student visitations, which provide modeling and connection with the students. They have been great. They come and talk to the students about what to expect in the middle grades in the high school, but also just become sort of a mentor and a friend to them, and help them develop the skills they need to navigate stress in relationships. So that's what these pictures are. So the top right is a senior who came to visit with our 5th grade. The top left is our nature part of our Zen Den. Left is Mrs. Yannick giving a social worker lesson, but to the buddy classes. So this was grade K and 3 that were together. And then in the bottom right, Mr. Miller, you have your beautiful Serena right there with her buddies in the kindergarten classroom working together. Some other building practices we have promote regulation, belonging, again, and positive school culture. So again, this is all on a tier 1 level, whole school level. So we have a wellness period that we implemented a couple of years ago. So on Friday's 8th period, the entire building stops. There's no pullouts, there's no lessons, there's no AIS or speech. And we dedicate that period to SEL, and it becomes a regulation block. There are suggestions of activities, but also teachers can really do what they feel the students need. We have assemblies at that time. They can work with their buddies. They can go outside. We worked with our superintendent student council on what the students wanted. They wanted more time with other grades, and they wanted more time outside. So that's something that we're starting to implement more. The top left picture is actually high school students coming during that 5th Friday, 8th period SEL. And they were able to choose between art sessions and gym, and these students chose to go out and play soccer with some of our varsity and JV soccer players. We also talk about weekly restorative circle questions. So every Monday I do send out like a Monday memo with the schedule of the week, but there is a wellness corner. So I do give activities that they can try or restorative circle questions that we can talk to our students about based on that theme of the month. Something we also started to implement, if you see it says SEL support. So we have special areas or special support teachers because we don't have pull-outs and preps. They have a free period. So they'll go watch the class and give the teachers some time for their own SEL. So it gives them time to make phone calls or catch up on schoolwork or catch up on grading. And that has become a really nice part of our school, and it's teachers supporting teachers. Monthly themed assemblies, and we also give out awards from our teachers every month. And then something I think truly special is at our PTA event, we have accessibility adjustments. So we open them earlier for students who may need just a little bit more time going to those activities. We have the Zen Den kind of moved a little bit closer and smaller. We have headphones for students. So it's just to reduce those participation barriers because we want everybody to feel included and we want everyone to be able to come and be a part of our activities. So those were our building activities that we were doing, but teachers are also doing things in their own classrooms. And I wish I could take a picture of every classroom, but I did walk around and I just took pictures of things that I saw that really do relate to what we're trying to do. Clear transitions, what's next. So a lot of the teachers have schedules of the day, so they know, okay, after PE, we have math, and there's that routine in that schedule. A lot of the teachers have a safe place in their classroom, so they don't necessarily have to go to the Zen Den, but they can go to the corner when there might be a little couch or a little beanbag chair or sequins that they can touch for tactile regulation. We have clear expectations, and this is something that we're starting to build on, but we started with hallway expectations. So before the students leave their classroom, every teacher says the hallway expectations. Keep your hands by your side, our mouths are closed, and we're facing forward. So that is something that we're going to keep consistent from kindergarten to 5th grade, and we're going to be working more on cafeteria expectations just so that they know what is expected of them. 60-second reset. That's the bottom left corner. There's like a jellyfish breathing that teachers have implemented after lunch and recess when they're really heightened, just to calm them down, get them ready for learning. 2-minute movement. We are so lucky that we have outdoor learning. We have those picnic tables outside, so you can take them outside. We're also really lucky that we have the nature preserve right there, so that is another opportunity. And then something important we do is that we make sure that we do validate the students' feelings before putting any of this into place. So we're following the framework of connection first. So we want students to feel like they are understood, that they're connected, that we are supporting them in any way that they need to be supported. But then we're clarifying that and restating the expectation. Mrs. Graziano is amazing at that first then. So first we're going to do this. First we're going to have a moment together, but then we're going to go back to our desk and we're going to get to work. And then the third is instruction, so teaching and practicing the skill that the students need. So this framework really helps students from beginning to end. They return to learning quickly, but also building the skills that they need for the future. So this is definitely a process. This is not a one and done situation. We are definitely not 100% perfect at this right now. We really are just starting to implement some of these things, but it's important to know what we're doing. Is it working? So some ways that we'll know it's working is reflected in the student functioning and then the school climate. But there will be more protected learning time, fewer escalations in the classroom, students independently using strategies. We do have students now saying, I just need a minute, which is so important and so much more understanding for us than escalating into behaviors. Calmer, more predictable transitions, and then stronger follow through on those expectations. So success means students are able to go back to that learning quicker and more successfully so that we can continue with the instruction throughout the day. Oops, wrong way. So I think the most important thing is that we are not separating behaviors SEL from academic success. That student support is a huge part of it. And we don't lower our expectations for students who are struggling. We change the path so that they can meet them as well. And then our 2 words really have been structured and consistent. So we're trying to be really consistent with those expectations. The hallway, we're not going into the hallway without saying those expectations, because the more repetition, the more they're going to get used to it. But by strengthening that regulation and belonging, predictability, we are helping students become more ready to learn and able to meet the standards that we expect of them in the classroom. And that is our goal at BBP. BPE. BBP too. It's all our goal, but BPE focused right now. So thank you again. This is something that I'm very passionate about, and we are working on it, and I hope we see some of those changes in the future.
Thank you, Ms. Velasco. We appreciate it. Any questions from trustees? Well, thank you guys so much for coming tonight, Ms. Velasco. We do appreciate it. But at this time, we're going to turn it over to Ms. Lachlan for our, turn over to Dr. Harney for our 6th budget workshop.
Good evening. First of all, thank you, Ms. Velasco. Thank you very much for that. We really appreciate it. Excellent job, and continue to do what you're doing over there at Blue Point Elementary. If we can give her one more round of applause, please. Also, just so we know, or one thing I really like to share before we get started is, and I think this I did not, we have 4 people on the agenda tonight that have spent many, many years, and I know we will recognize them later on, but I would just like to recognize them now. And they are not here tonight, but I do think it's important just to let them know that we want to congratulate them, and we wish them the best in their retirement. And we have 2 of those people from our administrative unit, Ms. Doyle and Ms. Arcones, and then also from our clerical unit, Ms. Asta and Ms. Hanson. Again, we will recognize them at a future board meeting, but I wanted to bring them forward because they have spent so much time and given so much to this district. If we can give them a round of applause too, please. Thank you. So tonight, Ms. Lachlan and I are going to share budget presentation number 6. Up on the screen here is really what we're going to be focusing on tonight. I'll do the first part of it, and Ms. Lachlan will pick up with the second part. So we're going to talk about things that we're very proud of within Bayport Blue Point. We're going to talk about some of the enrollment trends, which are things that I've talked about in the past. This is a presentation that I typically do this time of year, every year within the budget cycle, so it's nothing new. You'll see me doing a 10-year comparison like we've done in the past, so we'll go through that. And then we'll talk about recommendations for the upcoming year, and then kind of the budget recap, the impact of, if you remember last time we had talked about what we were thinking about in terms of a tax levy and other information we just would like to share with the board tonight. But just like everything, we have our 3 priority areas, which we talk about in every single meeting, and this is really what drives us as a district. As we all know, I'm in the process, or we are in the process, I should say, of revising our strategic plan for the 2026-27 year and beyond. So hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have that, and we'll present that as well to the board. So that is our guiding light, though, as we're moving forward. These are areas that we talk about, things that we're very proud of. I'm actually going to go to the next screen because it's a little bit easier for us. But here are just some highlights over really, and I'll say it, last 9 or 10 years where we've kind of continued to grow as a district. And as we know, we are faced within the tax cap era, just like all the districts in New York. But during this time, we have made a very conscientious effort to continue to grow as a district. And these are just some of the areas that you see. I'll talk about enrollment in a second, but within that enrollment, right, we've added now 6 classes of pre-K, which is something we did not have 10 years ago. All right, so there's 116 students in there right now. Our graduation rate continues to be one of the highest. Something we're also very proud. You often hear us talk about our AP classes, which we have over 20 of those. But now we have also upped our dual enrollment, thanks to things that Mr. Walcott is doing at the high school, where in the past we had 8, 9, 10 dual enrollments, where now we're looking at 28. This is where students can take courses here and then also get college credit through Suffolk County. Obviously, our music program does tremendous. We have over 200 music recognitions. And thank you to the board and all their support over the years. I can tell you 10, 12 years ago, we had limited number of students going off to career tech, where now we have 42 students. Almost really anyone who is asking for it, as long as they're meeting the requirements, we're able to send them. And again, that's because of the support of our district and support of our Board of Ed here. So that is something we're very proud of. I had mentioned the AP courses earlier. I can tell you this, and I happen to know the numbers. When I started here many, many years ago, we were writing about 160 exams. We are over 600 exams now for a school. And remember, that's with our enrollment dropping. So that is very, very impressive. And as Mr. Haas had shared at our or early on in the year, 88% of our students, of those students, are receiving a 3 or better. 55% are getting 4 or better. That is quite impressive. And that's really, thank you to our administrators and our teachers and everything that they do. We talk about the extracurricular. We talked about being connected. You heard Mrs. Velasco talk about that idea of belonging. So that is something that we continue to focus. Over the years, we now have 53 clubs, K-12. That's pretty impressive. And we have 87 athletic teams, 7-12. And we are still looking to add 1 more for next year. So that is something that we'll be talking about. But again, it's something as a district I think we should celebrate. And often we get caught up in a lot of the minutia that happens with an event, and we don't take the time to celebrate. But these are things, and there's many more things to celebrate, but we just thought we'd highlight a few of the things for you here tonight. And here's just a bunch of the recognitions that we received, whether it be through AP Capstone, the Blue Ribbon, us as a district, which is interesting because when I had originally gone back to take a look at the 10-year, it was actually January of 2017, so it kind of fits into everything we're talking about here tonight, is when we were first recognized. I can't believe that was 10 years ago. And obviously the things that we have, our best community for music education, School of Excellence, Section 11, we have many academic scholars here. So these are all things that we should be very proud and we celebrate as a district. So probably since the days that I was the assistant superintendent, I've continuously talked about enrollment. And we've done a number of enrollment studies. And often we get questioned on the enrollment studies, why do we continue to do it? And often back then I said, well, we do these things because it allows us to plan. And it really does. It set us up. And what you're going to hear me talking a lot about tonight is how we were able to plan. All right? So our enrollment over the last 10 years now, this is the 10-year comparison. 2016-17, we had 2,200 students. Right now we have 1,831, or predicted for 26-27, 1,831. I've always said that by this time, it would have been around 25%. It is just about that. Because in those numbers now are pre-K, which is again 116, which we did not have 10 years ago. So if you're looking K-12, it's about 600 students. That's about 25% when you're doing the 2,400 where we started. So that is something as we've been doing. But continually, as I said, as our enrollment, we've continued to try to offer our students many more opportunities, whether it be academically, socially, athletically, or through the arts. So that's something we've continued to do. So if we move on to our next, so I'm not going to go through all these numbers, but what we have here for you is just, again, a 10-year comparison from when it was 10 years ago, 17 to 2000, really we did net last year, 25, 26, and then what we are predicting for next year. And that's what I'll talk about a little bit. So you have everything here. What you'll see when we flip to the next page is when you're looking to the right, the total numbers, because people will often say, well, you haven't really done anything with your staff, even though you've been losing enrollment. I would challenge that. In 2016-17, now this isn't all staff, this is really from the instructional staff, right? We were at 241, where now we're recommending we'll be at 227. So that's around 14 staff members when you're talking about that. But also remember in that time, you'd say, oh, maybe it should be a little bit more. At that time, we did not have a social worker at every building, which I do believe is essential for what we're doing and everything we're talking about, even things you heard Ms. Velasco talk about. We didn't have pre-K back there. So right now, I can tell you that is 8 staff members right there. So if you take those into consideration, but again, the idea is to continue to expand and offer more offerings, even though as our enrollment was doing, and trying to do this all in the being confined to the tax cap calculations that we've had to do. So you have that for you here. So that's what we wanted to show you. As we look at we're going to move to the next one. As we look to classes, so this is what we're looking at for next year. So this is a comparison where your left is 25, 26, and we talk about the 3 elementary schools, which it's easiest to show you there. What this really means is our class sizes to the left is what they are in 25, 26, and 26, 27 is what we are projecting for next year. So if you're looking at Academy Street here, we are really looking to reduce by 2 sections. Saying that, it really may be 1 section because kindergarten is really what we're watching at Academy Street right now. Academy Street numbers for kindergarten right now are around 45. So that is teetering on, where if you remember this past year at Sylvan, we had 2 sections of 23, so we are good right now. And you've heard me say over the years, K2, 3 should be somewhere probably in the range of 18, 19 to 22, 23, so we've been around that area. And then when we're looking at really 4, 5, 23 to 25-ish, remember we're trying to move away from, we had those numbers during COVID, which as over the time, and this is where it comes the planning piece, as over time has come when we've been planning, as we've had retirements or people leave us, that's when we've looked to not necessarily replace through attrition. And as you know, we recently, months ago, adopted the Teachers Retirement Incentive, so we really know what our numbers are going to be for the next 5 years, which allows us to plan a 5-year financial report, which is something that Ms. Lachlan is working on in her office. So everything you're seeing here today was really predicted or really starting to discuss many years ago as we're going into this. So we're taking into consideration where we had 2 elementary retirements. We are trying not to replace them at that time and still keeping these same classes that you are still seeing here, okay? I'll give you a quick comparison, though it's not necessarily apples to apples. In Academy in 2016-17, because I'm doing a 10-year, we had 341 students. We have 294 now. Back then, we had 16 sections. This year, we're predicting probably 15 is what we're looking at. If you're looking at the class sizes, an average, now again, I'm just doing sections by total number. Back in 2016-17, it was about 21 point something. Here, when you're doing it, it's about 19 and a half. So actually, we're very similar to that. And if you did that across the 3 buildings, it's the same. Blue Point really is no change. Blue Point 2016-17 had 234 students. Now they're about 205. But again, because there's always 2 sections for each grade level, it is what it is in terms of Blue Point, in terms of their numbers. So that's why their numbers will vary. They can go from 24, so because we don't have room for a 3rd section in any of the grades if that happens, or down as low as 14 or so if you have 28 students, because you're not going to do one section of kindergarten at 28 or something like that. So that is, Blue Point is pretty steady when it comes to that. And then you have Sylvan, again, where we're looking to make a change where, as I said, at Academy, it was in that 4th and 5th grade where you were looking at the 23 and 24 students. Here at Sylvan, it would be in that in the 5th grade, which would be a reduction of a section there, where we're looking to have 2 sections, which would be, again, actually, sorry, 4th grade. Sorry, I'm mixing up my numbers, which would be 24 and 25 students there, which falls into, again, what we've been talking about over these years. But in general, the classes are going to range, again, from 19 to 20, except within that 4th grade as we've seen. And that really kind of compares to what we have at Academy Street as we're looking at this. And again, you have on your left what was compared to in 2025, this past year, 25, 26. But again, if you do that same exercise, in 2016-17 in Sylvan, we had roughly 320 students. And again, no pre-K at that time. So right, if you would have had pre-K at that time, it would have been 420. Okay, but I'm doing everything K-5 as I'm sharing this information with you. We had 17 sections back there, so it was average just about 19 students. If you did, again, simple math, and it varies from grade to grade because we have the 3 buildings, and now it's at 20. So it's very, very similar when you're looking at it. Again, grades vary a little bit, but overall, it's very similar as we talked back to that time. I'm going to kind of finish right there, and then I'll take any questions, and I'm going to have now Mrs. Lachlan walk you through how this has an impact on our budget, the levy, and we'll go from there. So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So just quick recap as to where we were back on February 11th. We had presented a budget shortfall from the revenue side of about $2.9 million, and that was with our negative 0.7 tax levy limit that we're allowed. At February 26th board meeting, the board discussed a maximum levy that they are comfortable with at that point in time for us to report to the comptroller's office on March 1st, and that was going up to a 2.99%. So we added that money, which was revenue, to the budget of $2.3 million to offset that 2.9 deficit. On March 2nd, we added a BOCES refund that we do receive every year, but we're slowly reducing that as we don't, that's not a guarantee of funds, and it has been reducing over time. So we added revenue of $150,000. Later in the month, we have finalized the expenditure side of the BOCES budget. We received that from them, and we've gotten all the requests from the buildings. So the expense reduction on the BOCES budget was $56,000. And then just last week, we finalized the staffing budget, as Dr. Harney just said, and we reduced expenditures by an additional $600,000. Up until this point, all retirements that we've received, we were taking in the budget throughout the process, so that number is not higher because of that. We were, as teachers were retiring, we were replacing them one for one. We now know who we are replacing and who we are not through attrition, and we're able to take that additional savings of what we were budgeting of the replacements. So that is salaries and benefits included for those people. So where we stand as of today, we actually now have a surplus to the budget, which is good news. We have balanced the budget on the expenditure side to the revenue. We have about $150,000 extra revenue as a result of going to the 2.99% levy that the board had authorized us to. So we are kind of at a point before we adopt on April 21st the option of reducing the levy to balance the budget, and if we were to pull that $149,000 out, would equal to a 2.75 levy increase year over year. Or the board can choose to reduce our reserve allocations by that $150,000. Currently, we're allocating our employee retirement system reserve $1.1 million, our teacher retirement system reserve $105,000, workers' comp $500,000, and then we have our appropriated fund balance, which we do year over year, of just over $2 million. So we could reduce, I would recommend, if that was the category that we were going in, to reduce the TRS reserve and the ERS reserve by that $150,000. And that's more for long-term longevity with our reserves and our forecasting. So really, just a key takeaway, as we've said, revenue has been decreasing year over year. Our state aid has decreased. We're only receiving the minimum foundation aid of 1%, but when we take the expense-based aids against that, that have reduced, we're at a 0.85% of state aid increase, and then the rest we really rely on our taxpayers for. So it is necessary to go beyond the tax levy limit as a result of the negative levy that we have for the next school year. And we also do need to start looking at our reliance on fund balance and the reserves for future years. And as I'm working through that long-term financial plan to present to the board in the next few months, we will showcase what that plan will be to reduce that reliance. Our next board meeting, as I said, is April 21st, where we will propose the final budget for adoption with guidance from the board this evening. And that will be in the 3-part form as required, and we'll have the final superintendent recommendation, and then the budget hearing is on May 5th. So with that, we will take any questions.
I just wanted to add one thing. One of the things just as Ms. Lachlan was talking, I just kind of wanted to jump back to it real quick. Early on, when I was showing you even the secondary numbers, and I had mentioned that we had 2 retirements at the elementary, I do want to also mention that we have retirements at the upper grades as well, where we are also looking to make reductions through attrition. So I just wanted to put that all out there. But again, in the same aspect, when we were doing our analysis of this, class sizes even at the secondary level are around 22 as well. So it's, again, going back to doing those comparisons, we're very, very similar. And as we continue to get more retirements, we will continue to look at this even across the various units as well. But again, one of the big messages here is it's something that we knew that was coming, that we've been planning for. And the idea has always been to do this through attrition. There is no excessing happening this year. That's what it's really about that. So that's kind of where we are, especially because, and now we think our enrollment will stabilize. So this will allow us as well to really plan as we're going out, as I had mentioned earlier. So with that, we'll take any questions that you may have, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Dr. Harney. Thank you, Mrs. Lachlan. Any questions from trustees? Mr. Johnson?
So if I'm reading correctly, we're looking at an option, one of the options, option 1 being a 2 3/4 tax levy increase, which would be a Pierce, correct?
Correct. Basically, as Ms. Lachlan has spoken about in the past, our allowable tax levy is that negative 0.76, which is, we've talked about, which was due to debt coming off our books mainly. And as for us to kind of balance our budget, yes. So your answer is yes. We would be going over the allowable limit, anything over negative 0.76.
Okay. So, I think it's more not a question, just kind of highlight some things that I think that people won't really capture. So we hear that term and our heads kind of like explode a little bit. But in reality, this is what it looks like. The community approved the tax levy last year during the budget vote of, what was it, 3.45%? Now, due to errors within that calculation, it ultimately got rescinded and put forth as 0.25%. So 3.2% lower was the average increase in taxes than the community actually was willing to approve last year. So this year, at a necessity, based on an increase of only 0.25%, and to maintain programs, by taking this 2.75 and adding it to that 0.25%, what the community really is seeing is an average tax levy increase over 2 years of 1.5%. Like, I think if you look down at other districts, you won't see many 1.5% or lower when we talk about. So I know it's tough to look at, but in essence, we're still below what was actually approved last year across 2 years.
Yeah, it's a fair point. And what we know to date, and again, this is based on preliminary information that's been shared with us. For example, the Suffolk County average as of right now, and again, budgets haven't been adopted yet, just like we have not adopted ours right yet, it's 2.8. So there are many districts that, quote unquote, that are not going over the allowable tax levy that will, that their levy, because permissible will be higher than ours.
So I really just wanted to like kind of put that forth that we're doing pretty well as far as tax increases between last year and this year. If this were, if and when this does pass, we're talking about 1.5% a year increase. And, like I said, you approved a 3.45% in just 1 year alone last year. And now, in essence, due to all this stuff, we're actually seeing a much lower tax increase last year and this year combined, more than we were looking to a community to do last year. So that's good news, I think. I welcome this because although I don't like the way we got there, we're actually getting the taxpayer much lower over the last 2 years than we anticipated.
And the other thing, Mr. Johnson, is we're not talking about programs or anything. We're continuing to offer our students everything that I showed you early on in the presentation. It's all still within the budget, just as it's always been. So I think that becomes important as well.
Any other trustee questions? Not hearing, I would recommend what Mr. Johnson just said, a 2.99. I agree, last year was a 0.2. This year being a 2.99, you're looking at a 1.5 over the last 2 years.
Mr. Johnson?
I think the
What do you say?
2.75 option, and like I said, unless, listen.
He means 2.99.
I said that the 0.25% that increased and the 2.75 would keep us at 3% across 2 years overall.
We're talking 3.1.
Yeah, well, your math's a little off, but
299.2. I would recommend 2.99. Ms. Pigataro?
Just to jump into the fray. First of all, thank you so much for this comprehensive presentation. And having been in public education for 22 years myself, I know that a lot of the time when budget issues arise, programs fall and staff falls. And I'm so very grateful that that's not the case here. So to hear from our staff at all of our board meetings about all the wonderful things they're doing in their buildings and knowing that you're working so hard to preserve those things. So I thank you for that. Personally, I would like to see what 275 looks like. I think we're very, very fortunate to have a community that largely supports our budgets. And I think in good faith to them, a 2.99, if we can come down to 275, I would be much happier with that.
I mean, the answer to the question is as Ms. Lachlan had mentioned that, basically where we are now through savings and attrition and everything you've heard us talk about for the last couple of months, there is the extra, I'll call it revenue right in there right now, which would be applied to our appropriated fund balance if we went at the 299, correct? And if we don't, our budget is balanced at 2.75. So our ultimate goal in the future is absolutely to reduce that number, because years ago we were doing that. And then we kind of halted a little bit due to COVID. We were trying to be very conscientious. If you remember, there were a number of years that we went below the allowable tax levy because we were trying to show some relief and help our taxpayers here. So we do want to get back to where we can start to lower that again. That is going to be part of the 5-year plan as we're going forward. But that's what it would mean, basically. It would mean that just we wouldn't start that this year.
So my only concern is I do feel that the community will support a 2.75. I just know that we were in the paper as saying we could come down to 2.5. So what does 2.5 look like?
Yeah, it would be, we have it right here. We actually have, actually in the paper, we said we would take a look at trying to be below the 2.99. We did not use a number.
Yeah.
It's another $155,000 we'd have to cut from the budget.
And would that come from reserves, or you would have to
No,
find it?
and we would go through and try to just tighten up even a little bit more.
Okay.
one of the things, full transparency, is we do have in there is, in terms of, for example, right now, we're not sure about the Academy Street kindergarten class. So we have to have something as a contingency there just in case. It just may mean then our contingency may not be there as an option. We look at other options as well.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it, you guys, we've got a tax levy that's negative. We had a tax levy increase the year before that ended up actually only being 0.25%. So it's not sustainable. Tim and his team did an outstanding job figuring out like what we need to balance to keep the programs. That's 2 3/4. Yes, would it be nice to go a little higher? I don't think I want to X that of the taxpayer, even though it's much less than the single year increase we planned on doing last year. But at the end of the day, I'm not looking to cut programs. I'm not looking to pad the budget. Let's stick with the option that was presented for us. I think that keeps us at 3% growth over 2 years total, 1.5% a year. I think that's outstanding. If something unknown hits, we'll take the risk, but I also don't want to take the risk of programs and budget.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Any other trustees? Dr. Hart, is there anything you need from us?
No, just as really as we're getting ready for the 21st, it's really is, I guess the question, or our question to you, is there anything else you need from us to help, give you more information to inform your decision?
I would put that to the trustees. Any other research questions you need answered from Dr. Harney? Thank you so much. Any community members or any questions while they're up here? Dr. Harney, Ms. Lachlan, thank you guys so much. Big round of applause for these guys. Oh, I heard.
You gotta talk about it.
All right, moving on to consent agenda. Any items the board would like removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda? Not hearing any, can I have a motion to approve consent agenda items F through L? Mr. Johnson, second. Ms. Pignataro, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 6-0. Can I have a motion to review the second reading and adoption of policies 4772, graduation ceremonies, 5405, student fitness and nutrition, 5465, child abuse in the educational setting, 8111, reporting of hazards, 8121.2, automated external defibrillators, and 5420, student health services. Mrs. Kane, second. Oh, Mr. Wright, any discussion? No four? Motion carries 6-0. At this time, we'll open up the community members. All right, not hearing any. Open it up to trustees. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Johnson, second. Ms. Pignataro, thank you guys so much for coming tonight. We appreciate it.